Hi, my name is Janell and welcome to TableTalks. We are going to sit down with a special intuitive and life coach, Emily Howe, who is working with women, helping them find their superpower. Mothers who are going, hey, I got more to do. What is that and how do I find it? It is empowering when we know we can find the answers because, like Emily shares, the answers are inside of us. And instead of blocking and keeping ourselves from our heart, we can actually release this stagnant energy from our bodies and connect to who we really are. And in that space, there's our inner compass and our intuitive gifts, our energy gifts. How do we know what they are, though? Well, that's where we can work together. I'm an energy healer and I help people find those intuitive gifts, activate those, explain them, work with them. So if you've been wondering, how do I know what my gifts are? Let's have a conversation at janell@janellray.com. You can reach out to me and let's set up a call and let's talk about, hey, how can that look for you? What are your gifts and how can I find them? So in our conversation with Emily, we're seeing what she's been using through breath work and the other tools that she brings to the table to help people clear blocked energy so that they're connecting into their heart and finding that inner peace. It's a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And so I'm glad you're here. Come join me. Hi, welcome to Clarity. I'm so glad you've joined us today. I'm sitting down with Emily Howe. She is a coach, life coach, and I'm not going to go all the way into that because you've already heard it. But we are so glad, Emily, that you have joined us and helping us just bring clarity through your gifts and the techniques that you're using to support your people and the people that are coming to you. So we're going to explain what that means here in a second. But before we do, I would love to hear about your story. Our stories really tell us they're a part of our journey. Our story is our journey, and it leads us to what we do. So with your work and what you're doing, where did this start for you? What part of your life led you to here?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here and connecting with your audience. And yeah, thank you for inviting me to share my story. My story probably began, well, my whole life. However, probably began when I was 6, and I knew that I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up. It was very clear that I wanted to be a teacher, and how I knew to do that was to teach at school. And I was always really inspired by my teachers. I loved school. I loved learning and growing and all the things. And as I got older, I was always really curious about personal development, spirituality, tarot cards. I was really curious about all of those metaphysical things, things that aren't of this world, and how we can be in this world in the best way possible. I was always really curious about that. And after high school, when I went to college to become an elementary school teacher, because that's what I thought I was here to do in this life at the time, my favorite classes were yoga, meditation, religion and spirituality was really what lit me up inside, and psychology and all of those things. However, I was living from here in my head. And when I was living from a place of my head, I was like, oh, it makes sense for me to become an elementary school teacher. And that's the path that I pursued. I got my master's in elementary education and have spent nearly 2 decades teaching elementary school students, mostly third graders. And as I have pursued this path, when I had my daughter 8 years ago, that's when it really became very clear to me. I had this awakening experience when I had her, becoming a new mom. I opened my eyes of I need to do better in this life than I'm currently doing, and wasn't quite sure how to do that. And so then I dipped back into my meditation practice and mindfulness and really studied that and brought that into my classroom teaching and offered that to my students in a way, and was really interested in that. Went on a couple silent retreats during that time. And then a few years later, my daughter was 3 at the time and was seeking something more. I was really feeling like there is something more that I'm needing. I'm not getting the results that I wanted from reading my books and doing my mindfulness practice and meditation, and was having two different challenges at the time. One in my relationship with my husband, and then another with my career. I was questioning all the things, and I came across a transformational coach at the time and knew pretty quickly after meeting her that I needed to work with her, because I knew she could get me that transformation that I was seeking. And when she asked me how I wanted to feel after working with her, I said I wanted peace. And that is what I was seeking inside, because I was feeling anxious and overwhelmed a lot of the time. And I didn't have that peace inside. And my husband and I worked with her together separately. Her name is Sandra. And we talk about, it was such a pivotal experience for us both. We worked with her at the same time, but separately. And we often refer to our time before her as BS, because her name's Sandra, and the time that we worked after her as PS, post Sandra, because
Yeah.
our lives so drastically changed through our work as a with that transformational coach. And while I was working with her, I was really curious about what she was doing, because I kept asking her questions, like behind the scenes questions of, what are you doing? How does this work? And that you can do this as a profession. And so then after that, I decided to become a coach myself, because it was so profoundly impactful for him and myself and us in our relationship, because we both worked on our own stuff together, separately, but at the same time, releasing past emotions, things that were stuck and stagnant in us. And then we were able to move forward, and it was so amazing, and decided to become a transformational coach myself. And then the breath work came in fairly recently. I had made the decision to abstain, go alcohol free, and abstain from alcohol. And during that time, I had lots of emotions that were coming back to the surface, and wanted a way to process those emotions. And so the breath work is practice that allows me to release my emotions that are coming up for me, and create a space for myself to process those emotions, and then returning to that wholeness within myself, and getting that clarity of knowing that we all have all of the answers that we need inside of us. It's accessing that wisdom is what we need support with sometimes. And that breath work for me and my clients is that additional support. So that is a bit about my journey. In a
Beautiful story, though, isn't it? Beautiful story. Did you know? Now, do you consider yourself intuitive? Do you have an intuitive sense about you?
I do, yes. And I'm very empathic and introverted. And I don't know if I really realized I was introverted until I read the book Quiet by Susan Cain. And I think I was like 30 at the time. I'm like, oh my God, this explains so much. And, I mean, it's a label, and labels sometimes can be constrictive. But for me, that was just eye-opening of understanding who I am in this world and how I operate, and understanding why I was so tired at the end of the day when I was in a classroom full of students and in a building with 500 other people all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes those labels bring clarity. too, don't they? It's like when
Right.
I was diagnosed finally with my dyslexia, I was 23 and I was in Russia and I was sitting across the living room with my roommate. She was from Australia and she had her doctorate in English and special education was her second. And we're studying the language together. And so through that, she's going, "Are you dyslexic?" And I said, "No, I just really stink at this." But no, we really came to find out that I am. And it's the same thing. It brought so much clarity and understanding. So yeah, sometimes they're restrictive to those things, labels are, and sometimes they're just like, well, that makes sense then. Right?
Yes. And
Totally makes.
so, and for me, I used alcohol now knowing as an introvert to make myself feel more socially comfortable. I was a social drinker and leaning into that and just like doling down those gifts in a way because I am really empathic. And then I could just kind of shut it off with the alcohol, and removing that from my life has made a world of difference and really allowed me to tune in even further and be able to expand my gifts in that way.
Absolutely, because that's a key part of who you are. You know, we have
Mhm.
our physical gifts, but those intuitive gifts, that empathic gift and all that comes with that package, that's just as much us, isn't it? So to really be and step out in our power, which I know that's a huge part of your work, is helping and supporting people step into that power that they are. So that so I'm saying that as a statement. Do you agree with that? That intuitive side of us is part of that power package.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
100%. Because without that, I, my gifts come through me. Like I really feel like it's coming through me and not necessarily from me. And in order to do that, I needed to be clear in
Yeah.
order to.
And when you said that, the picture that I run so much in pictures. So as you were speaking about that, what it is it's not often if we're running just on our own power, there's a limit to it. But when you just spoke of that, I could just see this light, this gold light come through your person. And it's like, okay, that's a power that doesn't require us, our power. So it's limitless. And
Yes.
that's huge too, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome sauce. So you now know back, so you can look back. Did you see that empathic girl? Did you see the empathic gifts when you look back at her?
So a little bit, yes. And at the same time, I learned how to shut it down is
Right.
what I did. I was a former emotional stuffer. I learned just to like shut it down and cut off, this part of my being and really just be happy. Like that was the message that I received from the world in my upbringing, that the one emotion that we were supposed to feel is happy. And somewhere along the way, I got that message and internalized it and said, any other emotion that is coming up is not okay. And I just stuffed it down. And as we know, like that creates blockages and, didn't allow me to feel any of the other emotions more fully. And
Yeah.
now I am definitely here to feel it all and to be in it all.
And I just want to say that I bet most of us on this call, those that are joining this conversation right now, are going to be going, yeah, you're talking about me right now. Because I think there's so many of us have had or are professional stuffers because there are those beliefs. There's a belief that that is exactly what you do. And I think at a time, I have a theory, I think at a time that was a coping skill for society because how do you get through hard times? Well, sometimes you stuff because you got to focus here. And
Mm-hmm.
then you need to deal with it, right? It's most beneficial to bring that back over and deal with it and process that. But I think it was when I look at it, I think it was a conditioning of we got to survive. And there's a story where I think Reader's Digest had this story and years ago, and it was Thanksgiving or some occasion, and they had a ham, and the family sliced the one side of the ham off and the other side of the ham off and put it in the pan. And they're like, one day somebody's going, Grandma, why are we cutting the ends off this ham? It makes no sense. Well, because that's what we do. So they started getting curious and they're asking families, like, what's the deal with this? They said, well, back when, so what, great grandma or something, great grandma had a pan that was only this big. And we had to cut the ends off the ham to fit it into the pan. But it just became tradition. It's just what we do. And now our pans are plenty big enough and we're still cutting the ends off that ham. And I think now is a time of an awareness that we don't need to cut the ends off the ham anymore. We don't need to be shoving down like you were describing anymore. Our pan is big enough, right?
Yes, yes. Or
Yeah.
taking on those beliefs that were passed down from our grandparents and our
Yeah.
grandparents and our grandparents, right? Thinking about what are those beliefs and those qualities that serve us and support us moving forward and bringing those with us and then releasing those other things from previous generations.
It's okay to upgrade, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. And you're using, because when we shove down, we are, and I can just see it getting thicker and thicker and thicker. We're actually, and you said something I want to just highlight it, that we're not accessing, it actually blocks us, and we're no longer accessing I think probably a very authentic part of us. So all the other pieces that are there, we're missing out on because here we are we're now holding this, keeping ourselves from going there. And so you do something called conscious connected breathing. Is that a technique that you're using that's opening up that space, letting that?
Yes. Yeah, so it's a specific conscious connected breathing is a specific breathwork technique. It's actually all in and out of the mouth, which, as we know, all day long, we should be breathing in and out of our noses. However, this technique is all done in and out of the mouth in a certain time frame and to release those emotions and to open up. Yes. So to get that breath really deep down into the belly and into the chest and then release it up and out. And the beauty of that practice is that you get to release emotions and have an emotional release from a place of your unconscious mind. And so you don't need to be aware of what the emotions are or why you're releasing them or how they need to be released. And that is why I love this practice, because sometimes we're not aware of the stuff that we have to release or the stuff that we have inside our bodies. And so that is such a wonderful way to work with the unconscious mind in that way.
Okay. I feel if you're open to it, I think we should feel it together. Could you give us an example? And we do some breaths. We don't have to go through a whole cycle, or I don't know how long your usual session would be, but could we feel that with you?
Yes, yes. So, conscious connected breathing is all in and out through the mouth. And so you're going to open your mouth nice and wide, and you're going to take you can put your hand on your belly and one hand on your chest.
Does it matter right or left, up high, low?
It doesn't matter. No, just like on your chest. Yeah. And then you are going to open your mouth wide. You're going to take one breath down into your belly. Second breath into your chest and then release. And the release is just a gentle exhale. All the work's done on the inhale. And so you can just keep going. And then it's circular. So we'll take a few breaths like that. And then just notice what shift is happening or if you notice a shift within. So
Well, I got instantly hot, like sweat hot.
yes.
Ooh.
So that is one of those sensations. There's a lot. And in my guided experiences, I go over all of the things that could happen. Of course, there are always other things. And one of those is those temperature variations that you might have noticed, that you noticed, right? You got really warm, warmed up your body. Sometimes you can get really cold during the practice. And yeah,
Okay.
so I guide a 60 to 90-minute experience, both online and in person. And it incorporates other things other than the active breath work. And it's a very active breath work that I guide. And I do a journaling practice. I share a quote and some questions and talk about a theme that we have, and then guide through the
Because
conscious
stuff is going to
connected.
start coming up, isn't it? So you want to give it somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to come up. Let's give it a paper. Let's work through this and what anything, because I can feel like when I'm doing energy and I'm doing either channeling or doing a healing, often when big energy moves, that's one of my tells is that I just get hot. Like some people, you get the darndest reactions, right? I've seen people burp, all these fun things, but I get hot. So that when I got that flash like that, I'm like, okay, that means something that's big stuff moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Neat.
Yes. And
Neat.
so within the experience, I typically do 25 to 30 minutes of that active breath work, which
Okay.
is which is a while.
That
Yes.
is. You're
Yeah.
breathing like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
laying down though. Typically laying down on the floor, and it's like a workout. It's puts the work in breath work, and it's a workout. However, just like a workout, the first 10 minutes or so are challenging, and then once you get into the pattern, your body just does the thing you're telling it to do, and it
Mhm.
yeah, goes by quickly. And I incorporate music and my coaching along with the active
Yeah.
breath as well.
Do you know, do you see things come out in layers? Does it seem like, it's kind of like once that's gone and that can be processed, then let it sit, come back again and do it another layer. Do you see that in your practice?
Yes, yes. With clients that I've worked with as well, we go deeper and deeper into those layers once you release things. And then it's just nice because you can release things on a daily basis.
Mm.
So I also have a course where I have shorter practices for with the conscious connected breathing, and that is just could be a daily practice where you spend 10 to 30 minutes breathing in that way, just release the things that have come up throughout the day.
Yeah. So it's those helpful tools that depending on where people are at, depending on what their goals are, they can connect, use, so on. Nice. Because it's one thing to have this is what I do now, but now what? It's nice to have. So okay, this is what you do now, but now here's your practice to get you
Exactly.
based on your goal, sure. What are you wanting to accomplish right now? And you challenge, you kind of have it's a challenge, a soft challenge to women, mothers. It's like, are you getting that nudge? Are you getting that fire in your belly, knowing that there's something more for you? There's
Hmm.
something more for you. What are they showing up like? What are these questions? When you see a mom saying, what are they saying? Like, what's that thing that's bringing them to you for help? It's like, yeah, what is that?
Well, it's a few different things. Stress, overwhelm, anxiety, those big emotions that can come up, and just figuring out how to regulate our nervous systems and return to that place of
Mm.
peace, calm, and wholeness within ourselves.
And
Yeah.
say, and what's the root of that? What's at the root, do you think, of this stress, this overwhelm that we're experiencing?
Well, I think it could be a couple different things. I think most of us at the root have this feeling of not enoughness.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people aren't ready to admit that or aware of it. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of our things that we're doing comes from a place of not feeling like we're enough. So we're not connected with that wholeness that's inside us all. Like this isn't, something, a layer added on. So it's about a returning, right, to that wholeness and that connection within yourself and returning to that self-trust. And we live in a very noisy world. And all of like the external things. And I think that's the other thing that's happening is like people are so externally focused on the outside. And yet, really, we can get fantastic results when we tune back in to the inside and
Mhm.
inside ourselves. And then that's where we get to access that wisdom that is within us always. We have all of the answers that we need inside of us at all times. It's just getting quiet and releasing the other stuff that's stuck to return to that
Yeah.
wisdom.
And I'm not enough is a powerful emotion. Something broke the trust with myself. Some events,
Mhm.
some trauma or traumas broke a trust with myself. And from that, therefore, I won't go there. I won't look in because the answer's out here.
Right.
And and then that just scatters us every direction, doesn't it? It just, we are out of balance at that point. So yeah, I love that being able to say, yeah, but yeah, we are enough.
Mhm.
We are enough, and we can mend that relationship with ourselves. Yeah. And you
Yeah.
talk about a superpower that we have. Find your superpower. What are you talking about when you mean superpower?
It is just returning to that self-trust and self-love within ourselves and the wholeness. And when we all return to that, we would all be unstoppable in this life. Honestly, like if we all accessed all of our superpowers, our gifts, and really knew ourselves and trusted ourselves deeply and loved ourselves, I just envision this world, if when we all do that, how amazing that would be.
So give us some examples of superpowers. What are some superpowers people have?
Intuitive gifts, like accessing things from not from this earth. And so from other places, those metaphysical gifts, accessing that and just accessing that knowledge that lies within us.
Mm-hmm. Like you've mentioned it now a couple times, this wisdom. We
Mm-hmm.
have wisdom and we're connected to wisdom. Sometimes we think, well, where's this wisdom coming from? We channel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about superpowers and gifts, one of my gifts is channeling. And I was thinking at first it freaked me out because when I grew up, you didn't do that. You just didn't do that. And there was something wrong with that. And but you look at it, we're doing that all the time. People do it in different ways. And so many people are doing it. You listen to some big dogs in the like John Maxwell's popping into my head. He's somebody that I've followed his leadership techniques and things like that for a long time. And he talks about how he sits down and he downloads. He does it every day. He just connects to his higher self, his wisdom. In his words, he's going to say God. So however that connects for people in their
Mm-hmm.
language, and he's downloading. And so many times we're asking, what do I do? What do I do next? How do I do? And it's like, those are the questions that we have access to. I'm so glad you're bringing that up because we have access to this, don't we?
We do. Yes. And I used to be the person that would ask all the friends, all the relatives, like making a big decision, what do I do next? And at the end of the day, they don't know me and my life the way I do. I know myself and my life, and I know what is right for me. And when I access that, I can make a decision for myself moving forward from a place of wholeness.
Yeah, because you're totally connected at wholeness. You are as
Mhm.
authentic as it gets. And when you're as authentic as it gets, knowing what aligns with you is not so hard. It's when
Right.
we're full of things that aren't totally aligned with us, other beliefs, other energies. If you're an empath, you're possibly a sponge. So you've got everybody else's stuff plus yours. And you're trying to align stuff to that. How in the world do we do that? We
Right.
can't, can we, Emily? We have to help ourselves release that lovingly. No guilt, no shame at all. So,
Exactly.
right? It's just this is our journey and this is what we're learning right now. But when we do that and we do the work, we're working with someone like you and we're getting and helping release this, we find that unity within our souls, our heart space, and then deciding, hey, does that line up with me? Yeah, it's obviously it does, right? It seems so simple, but it is simpler. Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's
Yeah. Shortly after, I do have to tell this quick story. Shortly
yeah.
after working with our transformational coach with different modalities, working with our unconscious mind, right? Because 95% of what we do, our beliefs, our actions, our thoughts are all coming from our unconscious mind. And when my husband and I both returned to this place of wholeness, we actually had our kitchen remodeled shortly after, a few years later. And it was just interesting to see that during that remodel, we were able to make decisions quickly and efficiently. And it was really
Like,
interesting to see because, yeah, a previous version of myself would have hemmed and hawed and asked like a bunch of different people about the decision. And we just made quick, easy decisions. And when there were times when we remade a different decision, and that was easy. And the whole process was really fun and enjoyable. And it was just a physical example of how our inner work really plays out in our own lives.
nice. Let's talk some more about this superpower because I think it is good for us and our audience to see, well, what does this look like? Where are some other superpowers we can have? How does that manifest and look in real time, in real life stories?
Yeah. So part of it is to take ownership over yourself and your life, right? When we have that lens of everything's happening for us and not to us, that can really help shift our reality. And knowing that you get to choose your thoughts and how, our thoughts are so powerful, how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to others. And when we dig into that languaging piece of it, it can be really powerful. My last client had worked with me this fall, and she worked with me this fall because she knew fall was a time that she had challenges in her life in particular. And moving through that season and into winter, we kind of go more inward. And during that time that I worked with her, she hosted several family gatherings. And previously, prior to working together, she would stress out over these gatherings. She would get overwhelmed about everything needs to be perfect, right? She was very into that perfection. Everything needs to be perfect. I need to do everything exactly right. And this time, for these holidays, she hosted two family gatherings and was able to prepare in a meaningful, mindful way for these gatherings and also let go and enjoy herself, and really was able to just tune into the enjoyment of the moment and of the people around her and let go of everything doesn't have to be perfect. It's good enough just as it is, just like we are. We are good enough exactly as we are in every moment.
And there's your piece. There's the piece, isn't it? There's just that
Right.
piece. And there's also in that story, there's space to enjoy it. There's space
Mhm.
to actually enjoy whatever event, in this case, an event. So, and what are we looking for? Well, peace, joy, happiness, those that aren't reliant on external, but things that come from our inside out.
Mhm.
That's huge.
Yeah. And then also, on the flip side of that, there's all those other emotions, right? So like on the flip side of love, there's grief. And my breath work has supported me through my grief. I had a period last year. My dear aunt died. Her name was T-Head is what we called her, and loved her dearly. And, she died, and I was able to process my grief through my breath. And that I am so grateful that I had that practice in place prior to that happening, because there were times where I just gave myself space to lay on the floor and breathe and cry and really just feel all the feelings.
Because we're human. This is the whole spectrum of feelings, isn't it? And
Exactly.
process. How do we connect? How do we process so that we're not shoving again?
Yes.
No more shoving.
I know. Yeah. No more shoving. Yes. There's other ways that are more productive than shoving.
What do you really, if you could just leave the audience with a nugget, what would you leave them with?
That's a great question. I would leave you with, when you move from here to here and tap in to your heart space and your unconscious mind, that you can get the results that you are seeking, whatever it is you are seeking, the transformation.
And it's possible.
And it's possible.
Yes, yes. And
Yes.
you're leaving us with another nugget. You're leaving us with a gift for the audience that's joining us here today. And it is Intro to Breathwork. Do you want to talk to us about what that is?
Yeah, so it's a course. It is not very long, to let the word course intimidate you, because I am a teacher in this life, and I still know that 6-year-old me that knew I was here to be a teacher. That is what I'm here to do, even though I am not in an elementary classroom. I am still here to teach. And it is a intro to breathwork course, and there's about an hour's worth of content in there, and it has a couple breathwork practices, and then it has the breathwork conscious connected breathing in there that you can practice, along with a playlist and an audio of me coaching you through the practice. And it's a morning practice. I think it's about 20 minutes long, and it's just a beautiful way to start your day, filling up your own cup and taking care of yourself first. Us moms need to do that for ourselves first. And then we're able to serve others and support others in a way when we can fill ourselves up first.
Yeah, it's important to do that, isn't it? It's important to know how to maintain, how to support ourselves, putting ourselves first. And so we want to make this link. It's available in the subject right here. You can grab that. It can be available in the chat. So look for it there. And if you miss it, you can reach out at janell@janellray.com, and we'll make sure and get you that link. So you can experience breath work and the power and the transformative process that breathwork brings. So Emily, thank you so much for sharing your story, for being vulnerable and opening up here on this platform, and bringing your gifts. We all have a place on this planet. Our gifts are needed, and I am so grateful that you are actively speaking and bringing what you do and the transformative part to community. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me, Janelle. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. And if you like this video and you got value from this video, hit the like, subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell so you get notified that the next one is live. See you at our next Table Talk.